So it's February 16th, 2026. And the T20 World Cup has officially gone into chaos mode. I mean, you look at the schedule, you see Australia versus Sri Lanka. And
Yep.
let's be honest,
Yep.
99% of the cricketing world just pencils that in as a routine win for the Aussies. They're the power-hitting giants, the tournament favorites.
Right. And Sri Lanka, I mean, they're a proud cricketing nation, but they came into this sort of looking for an identity. The script was supposed to be Australia just muscling their way to 2 points.
But instead, what we got was a massacre, and not the way we expected. Sri Lanka didn't just beat Australia. They dismantled them.
They did.
They chased down 182 with 8 wickets in hand, and get this, 12 balls to spare. It wasn't some last ball scramble. It was a tactical undressing.
It really was. And looking at the fallout from it all, this feels like a watershed moment for the tournament. You have a scoreline that reads Australia 181 all out, Sri Lanka 184 for 2. But the gap, it felt so much wider than that.
That is exactly what we need to unpack today. Because when you look at the expert match review, this wasn't about luck. It wasn't a bad toss. This was a complete clash of philosophies. You had the modern smash-everything approach from Australia just colliding head-on with this surgically precise, spin-heavy strategy from Sri Lanka. And, well, smart cricket won.
It did.
Yeah.
And it raises a massive question about where the game is going. We've spent the last few years just obsessed with strike rates, bat speeds, hitting sixes.
Right.
But this match suggests that if you can't play those boring middle overs, all that power is just, it's useless.
Well, let's get into the crime scene. We have to start with the Australian innings because that is one of the most bizarre scorecards I have ever seen in a World Cup. It's a tale of 2 different matches.
It is absolute Jekyll and Hyde stuff.
They started like a house on fire. Travis Head and Mitchell Marsh, I mean, we know they go hard, but this was violence. They put on a partnership of over 100 runs for that first wicket.
And in T20 cricket, especially in a World Cup, a 100-run opening stand is gold dust. Statistically, if you're 100 for 0, you're winning that game 90% of the time. You were projecting a score of 220, maybe even 230.
That's the thing. I was watching the run rate, and they were just cruising. 10, 11 runs and over without really taking massive risks. It felt like the pitch was a highway.
Exactly. And that, right there, is where the trap was set. Australia fell in love with the surface during the power play. The ball was coming on. The pace bowlers were feeding their strengths.
Yeah, Head and Marsh were just planting the front foot and clearing the ropes.
But then the momentum just vanished. Travis Head gets out, and usually you'd expect the next guy, a Maxwell or a David, to come in and keep the foot on the gas.
Yeah.
But that didn't happen.
Not at all.
No. And this is the stat that should be keeping the Australian coaching staff awake at night. After that opening stand, Australia lost their last 10 wickets for just 77 runs.
10 wickets for 77 runs. That's a collapse you expect from a minnow nation, not the world champions.
It's catastrophic. And we need to look at why it happened. It wasn't like the pitch suddenly turned into a minefield. It was a refusal to adapt. The analysts are calling it a top-heavy failure, but I think it's deeper. It was tactical stubbornness.
Break that down for me, because we see players like Tim David and Maxwell, and their whole brand is aggression. Are you saying they should have played differently?
100%. When the ball gets a bit older and the spinners come on, and look, credit to Sri Lanka, their spin choke was exceptional. You can't just stand and deliver.
You have to work the ball.
You have to work the ball. You have to rotate the strike.
Which is the unsexy part of T20, isn't it?
It is the absolute heartbeat of an innings. The Australian middle order, they just failed to rotate. They'd face 3 or 4 dot balls from the spinners, panic, and then try to hit a 6 to release the pressure.
And on a track that was just starting to grip a little, that's suicide.
Precisely. It was an ego battle. They thought, we are Australia, we hit big. Sri Lanka basically said, okay, go on then, hit us. And they just kept getting caught on the boundary. It was a major tactical collapse because they refused to shift gears from 5th down to 3rd to navigate that tricky period.
So they limped to 181 all out, which, let's be fair, 181 is still a competitive score in a World Cup. If you told them at the toss they'd get 181, they probably wouldn't have been devastated.
True, but context is everything. When you're 100 for 0, 181 feels like a massive defeat. The momentum had completely shifted to the dressing room next door.
So enter Sri Lanka, chasing 182. The pressure is on. And out walks Pathum Nissanka.
And he produces what I would argue is the best innings of his entire life.
The numbers are just insane. 100 not out off 52 balls. It's the first century of the 2026 World Cup, the highest score ever for Sri Lankan in tournament history.
It was a masterclass. But what really stood out to me wasn't just the boundaries, it was the construction of the innings. We just talked about Australia failing to adapt. Nissanka was the absolute definition of adaptation.
He didn't come out swinging like a maniac.
No, not at all. He had what the analysts are calling the perfect tempo. In a chase of 180 plus, the temptation is to try and win it in the first 6 overs. Nissanka didn't do that. He respected the good balls early on.
But he never let the required rate climb too high either. It was a weirdly calm innings for such a big chase.
That's the genius of it. He targeted the weak links. He realized very quickly that those middle overs were where the game would be won or lost.
That's interesting, because usually batters try to survive the middle overs and then attack at the death. Nissanka sort of flipped the script.
He did. He attacked the spinners precisely when the pressure should have been building on him. Think about the Australian collapse. They let the spinners dominate them. Nissanka did the opposite. He used his feet, he swept, he disrupted their lengths. He never let the Australian spinners settle.
It's proactive versus reactive. Australia reacted to the spin and panicked. Nissanka proactively dismantled it.
Exactly. And he had help. We can't ignore Kusal Mendes.
Yeah, solid 51. That partnership was the nail in the coffin, wasn't it?
It was. It killed Australia's momentum completely. When you have 2 guys set and they're running hard between the wickets, turning ones into 2s, it just demoralizes the fielding side. By the time the death overs came, the game was effectively over.
Let's talk about the other side of that coin, though. The Australian bowling. You said they were demoralized, but looking at the matchup analysis, they seemed toothless.
Toothless is kind. It was ineffective pretty much across the board.
Okay, so start with the power play. Usually, Australia gets that early swing with the new ball. Stark, Hazelwood, that's their bread and butter.
There was 0 swing. The report specifically notes no early swing threat. And if you aren't swinging the ball and you aren't bowling 150 clicks, international batters are going to line you up. Nissanka and Mendes were just hitting through the line.
And then we get to the middle overs. Adam Zampa. I feel like we talk about Zampa every single time Australia plays. He's usually the guy who fixes the mess.
He's their safety valve. But today, he went wicketless. And that is highly unusual against Sri Lanka. Historically, Zampa's actually enjoyed bowling to them.
So why didn't it work this time? Was he just bowling badly, or did they play him that well?
A bit of both, but mostly the latter. Sri Lanka refused to give him his wickets. They played him with the turn, didn't try to slog sweep him against the spin. They nullified him. And when your primary wicket taker goes empty, the pressure just falls on everyone else.
And that's where the wheels really fell off, the death bowling execution.
It was so poor. The analysis highlights that after the 14th over, Sri Lanka just scored freely. That is usually when Australia tightens the screws with Yorkers and slower balls, but they just kept missing their lengths.
They were serving up slop balls.
Exactly. And when you have a batter like Nissanka on 70 or 80, seeing the ball like a beach ball, and you bowl a half volley, well, it's going into the stands. It allowed Sri Lanka to just cruise home.
And that brings us to this concept of the spin choke. We heard a lot about this. Sri Lanka applied it perfectly. Australia couldn't.
This is the definitive tactical takeaway from the whole game. Sri Lanka used spin in those middle overs to take the pace off the ball. They forced the Australians to generate all their own power, which led to the collapse.
Right.
Australia, on the other hand, couldn't apply that choke. Their spinners were milked for singles or hit for boundaries. They couldn't control the run rate. So you have one team controlling the middle phase and the other team getting completely controlled by it. That's the ball game.
It really highlights the roster construction, too. The experts are tearing into Australia's fragile middle-order balance. It feels like they're just so reliant on the top 3.
It's the stars and scrubs approach. You rely on Head, Marsh, and whoever is opening with them to win you the game. If they fail, or even if they get out after a good start, there's no plan B.
Plan A is smash. Plan B is smash harder.
Pretty much. And in a tournament environment that is so dangerous, you need players who can arrest a slide. You need that Mike Hussey type, someone who can absorb pressure for a couple of overs and then accelerate. Australia didn't have that today.
So, looking at the big picture here, it's mid-February 2026. Sri Lanka has booked their ticket to the Super 8 stage. They're safe.
They can sleep easy tonight. They're through.
And Australia.
Panic stations. The verdict is pretty grim. They're now facing possible elimination depending on other results. They went from, lifting the trophy in everyone's minds to potentially booking an early flight home.
That is the beauty of this format, isn't it? One bad afternoon and you are on the brink.
And that's why this is being called one of the biggest upsets of the tournament. not just because Sri Lanka won, but because of the sheer gap in quality on the day.
It's that clash of philosophies point again. The experts are saying this wasn't just an innings, it was a shift. Sri Lanka's spin-heavy strategy outplayed the power-hitting approach. Do you think we're seeing a trend here?
I think we are. For a long time, T20 was just about boundaries. Boundary percentage was the only stat that mattered. But as pitches get tired in a World Cup and as bowlers get smarter, the value of control is coming back.
It's almost retro, isn't it? It feels like 1990s ODI cricket tactics winning a T20 match in 2026.
In a way, yes. It proves you don't need to hit 15 sixes to win. You can win by hitting 4 sixes and running 40 singles, provided you take wickets at the other end. Sri Lanka showed that smart beats strong if the strong team just refuses to think.
And just to hammer home the dominant Nissanka, Sri Lanka finished this in 18 overs, 12 balls remaining.
That is a life.
We saw Australia completely capitulate, losing 10 wickets for 77 runs because they refused to respect the conditions. And we saw a tactical victory for spin and guile over just raw power.
That sums it up perfectly. It's a reminder that cricket is played between the ears. Australia lost the mental battle the moment that opening partnership was broken.
And for you listening, whether you're analyzing stats or just enjoying the chaos, here's the takeaway. You cannot simply out-hit the game of cricket forever, even if Ferrari needs brakes. Australia tried to take a hairpin turn at 200 miles an hour, and they crashed straight into the wall.
And Sri Lanka just drove smoothly around them in waves as they went by. Adaptability is the ultimate skill. If you can't change your game when the situation demands it, you become predictable. And today, Australia was painfully predictable.
So here's the thought I want to leave you with. We live in this era where everyone is obsessed with intent and power. But does this result prove that the old school virtues, patience, manipulating the field, building an innings brick by brick, are actually the future of winning these World Cups?
Are the power hitters becoming dinosaurs on these kinds of pitches?
That is the question. Maybe the era of pure power hitting is finally showing its cracks. Thanks for diving deep with us into this tactical upset. We will catch you on the next one.